Thank you for pressing start on episode 46 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today we have 2 secret games, followed by a review of our featured game, Titan Souls. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bopo, and joining me is my best friend, playing games that he recommends. He's the biggest fan of Mega Man flipping phones after smartphones began. I'm talking about the late-night streamin', secret game schemin'. Everybody say hola to DiscoCola. What is going on?
I'm a bit sore, honestly. I've got this crick in my neck. It's like I've been stabbed with an arrow or something. How are you, Bopo?
I'm doing just fine. My yeti with big buttocks.
Straightforward. In your face and to the point.
He rolls at you first, and then he shows it to you. Those are references to our featured game, Titan Souls, which is a predecessor of a game that we talked about way back in Season 2 of our show. We talked about Death's Door back in Season 2. It was episode 14 of our show. And here, we're talking about Acid Nerve's predecessor to that game. And the games have some connections, which we might briefly mention a little bit later when we review Titan Souls. So looking forward to that. I happened to see a little bit of you playing this on stream.
You sure did.
And you were able to finish it in one sitting?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I wasn't totally expecting to do that. I knew it was a shorter game, but I got to a point where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I'll finish this in one night like I hoped.
And then it happened.
And then I did.
I wasn't there for the end, but I think I left only about 40 minutes before you
finished. It was
so.
Not long before I finished. I thought back to it.
So yeah, it took me a couple of sessions, but just got it done the other day. And that will be our featured game. But first, here at the top of the show, before we move on to our secret games and such, we're going to do something we started in Season 4, which is on episode 2 of every new season. We're going to talk about some upcoming games that we're really looking forward to. So we can each maybe pick a handful or so of games and just kind of briefly talk about them. And they're likely games that we both have heard of, but we each have our own lists here. So
and these can be games that are potentially new featured games down the road, or just
secret games.
Games, any level of notoriety here.
Yeah, and as we sit down to record, it is approaching late 2023. And I think a lot of my games will come out sometime in 2024. I think there's a 2025 in here. Like they just know it's not coming out next year, baby. It's definitely not coming out. And which is interesting because it's been announced for a while. But did you want to start with one of your picks?
Sure. I'll start with one that's technically already out. It's out on PC, came out in February of 2023, but I'm hoping for a console version, and I only just learned about it. It's called Cavern of Dreams.
Cavern of Dreams.
And this is it. I don't know that it is a collectathon, but it's a lot like the Spyro and Banjo-Kazooie collectathons of the day. But visually, it actually reminds me the most of like Croc, Legend of the Gobos, and I've been really wanting to pick that up. There's also rumors of Croc getting a remaster in the future. So,
this looks so charming.
Yeah.
I'm seeing so many fun, vibrant environments, and it definitely does have that throwback late 90s 3D platformer look.
Yeah, very low poly. The textures are even not, as crisp as a lot of modern low poly games. It's very much emulating the original style.
That is awesome. It's reminding me of Super Kiwi 64, which is from Cyactro, who made the Tori games, like kind of what that developer is doing there with the throwbacks. So I don't know that I could get enough of that kind of platformer. That is sweet.
And if you're a PC player, you can play this now, but I'm hoping for a console port.
It might, we never know. You never know. That's a good pick. And you certainly turned me on to something that I wasn't aware of. Thank you. One of my picks is Europa. And this is where I'm kind of also tying in the October 2023 version of Steam Next Fest, because Europa is one of the games I got to play as part of this last edition of Steam Next Fest for the year. And it was one of my favorite games I played. This is a 3D exploration game where you're an android and you have a magical jetpack, and you're on this really lush moon planet thing, and you are just seeing gorgeous landscapes everywhere. It's very serene. It's very solitary. You don't really run into a lot of characters, at least in the demo I played. But it's just so relaxing. It kind of feels like a Studio Ghibli movie come to life. And I think it was up there as like maybe my favorite game I played at Steam Next Fest. It like is as good as it looks and sounds.
Yeah, it looks really pretty. I'm very into this.
I'll go ahead and just mention the other game in my list from Steam Next Fest right now that I played and really liked, and it's called Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. You've probably heard of Deep Rock Galactic, a first-person game where you're like a dwarf mining underground. I haven't played it myself, but it's a really popular game to play online with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of like co-op.
A lot of our friends play it, actually.
A lot of our friends do, yeah. And I just haven't played it myself, but here's a spin-off game called Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. And this is an isometric game where you kind of are in the same sort of sci-fi dwarf setting. But this is a Vampire Survivors like, basically, where you are this dwarf and you have like guns that you pick up, and there are rocks that you can mine, but everything is sort of automatic. When you're running around, your guns are automatically firing. And if you walk into rocks, you automatically start mining them, and you can pick up resources that way. And this is just one of those roguelikes where most of what you're doing is moving. And so with this mining mechanic of carving tunnels and killing hundreds of monsters, you can really strategize about what path should I take because I'm getting chased by all these creatures that want to kill me. And so I played this thinking, oh, this is kind of charming how it's like Vampire Survivors, which I got addicted to last year. And we're now starting to see all these like clones of Vampire Survivor. And this game ended up being like crack, basically, just like Vampire Survivors was for me like a year ago. I had to force myself to put it down to play other demos because I was just so absorbed with this, and I had a whole list to get to.
Another one of mine, I see ads for it all the time, so maybe you've seen ads for it. I believe it's currently in Kickstarter. By the time this episode comes out, I believe that Kickstarter will be over, but it's called Lucid.
Lucid.
This is a game that classifies itself as a Celesteoidvania.
What?
So, you know, they're kind of merging two of the hardest genres together there. But it looks pretty cool. I'm into Metroidvania. I like Celeste. It is definitely something I have to be in the mood for because it's so hard. But I think it looks really cool and has the chance to be a real standout game in a lot of ways, just for trying something that games like Ori and the Blind Forest have sort of approached, where you're sort of having to traverse these big open pits of death.
Yes. And you're like chaining together jumps and hitting like diamond-shaped objects to regain your jump. That kind of thing is definitely happening in Ori.
But it looks like Lucid's like that's the whole game.
Yes.
So
right. I guess that is the big difference between this and Ori is like, I see the trailer here and it says the world's first Celesteoidvania. And it's like, I don't know, but I guess like stylistically and art wise, and then just gameplay wise with that consistency of regaining your jumps, I definitely could see that.
Yeah.
And this does look just absolutely stunning. Another game that I don't think I knew about, and now you're just increasing my wish list size. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another one I want to talk about is Fruit Bus. This is a game that I have not had the chance to play. They've released the demo one or two times up to this point, and they keep making it a limited release demo, so I always forget to check it out. But this is a food truck simulator where you are cooking these really fun meals for colorful characters. And I saw this on Twitter. I saw the trailer. It just popped up in my For You feed, I think. And this just looks joyful. A lot of my picks in my list are joyful. And I guess I don't know more than that. It is one of those games where I'm just very curious to try it out. I want to try the demo as soon as it's available again.
I'm looking at the trailer right now, and I think it looks really cute. reminding me of our upcoming featured game, Donut County, a little bit. Obviously, more details in this game, but
Yeah.
there's just that same cute heart and soul
Yeah,
at the
definitely.
core.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like the characters that you're feeding are so fun and cute. Love it.
Another one that I'm looking forward to that I recently found out about is called The Heirloom. This looks like a story-rich adventure game with really beautiful hand-drawn art. Looking at it kind of reminds me of how I feel about looking at games like Oxenfree, which I still have yet to play. The Heirloom just recently closed its Kickstarter, I think last week as we're recording this. And I managed to get my donation in right at the end of the
Oh.
wire. So
I found a game on Steam called Heirloom, but it's like a black and white 2D side-scrolling platformer. That's not it, right?
I don't think so. I don't think this is black and white.
Okay, so it
Because
must.
the main character has like very striking reddish pink hair.
Yeah, I'm now Googling and I'm seeing the Kickstarter, and yes, I now see what you're talking about. Yeah, it looks like it's coming to all platforms, all major platforms.
Yep.
Awesome. I'll have to take a moment to watch the trailer later.
Yeah, and I know that this will be voice acted. You play in a lighthouse and you're trying to uncover some sort of mystery, I think.
Oh,
So
that's sweet.
looking
oh my
to be pretty
gosh.
good.
This is cool. I love this segment. This is so fun. My next pick is Windswept. I think we learned about this in some showcase, like maybe a wholesome games showcase within the past few years. But this is a 90s inspired 2D platformer starring a mallard and a turtle. And it just looks so cute. And here is the kicker. They already know this game is not coming out in 2024. The Steam page straight up says 2025, which is very brave and honest, and I appreciate that. But like we've known about this for a while, so they're really kind of taking their time to make a quality platformer, and I love quality 2D platformers. We need more of them in the world.
Never stop making them.
Especially when they have really adorable mascots. But yeah, that's all I know about it. It's been on my wish list for a while, and no new updates for a bit, but I'll keep my eye out.
Yeah, this looks really good. It looks like it has a lot of Super Mario World inspiration too. Like I'm seeing sections that look like the dolphins in Super Mario World.
Oh, yes.
And even like the little flagpole at the end
Yes.
of one of those levels.
I love the dolphins in that game. They're just so fun. You don't know what they're going to do, and they take you up so high. And yeah, you see Donkey Kong Country barrels.
There's Donkey Kong Country
There's
stuff
like,
going on here
there's
too.
some sticker brush stuff going on. So yeah, I just can't wait for this.
Makes sense. The last one that I want to talk about is one that I've already talked about before, but I'm still looking forward to Rune Fencer Ilya. Every time I see an update about it, every time it's coming closer, I'm like, this is looking pretty good. So that's my last one for this edition of games we're looking forward to.
Yeah, you mentioned that one last time, and you put it on my radar at that time. I'm going to mention two more. One is one I've mentioned before. It's Valley Peaks. It is a 3D platformer with frogs where you're scaling mountains. It is wholesome and kind and cozy, and the color palette is just kind of like, I don't know, just so gentle
It's
and warm.
Nuts. Yeah.
It is kind of like nuts. Few more colors in the palette. Like it's not like 2-bit or whatever that was. But I got to play this for Steam Next Fest, I want to say in June 2023. So that's when it was put on my radar. And then another one I learned about from Twitter. It is a follow-up to a secret game of mine from a while back. I played Grapple Dog a while back. This is Grapple Dog's Cosmic Canines. So this is Medallion Games' follow-up. And it kind of sounds like, with the pluralization, that it might be like a co-op game. From what I can tell, it is foremost a single-player game. But you're playing as more dogs in this. So it could be more like Donkey Kong Country, where you're controlling multiple characters. It could be something like that. Pablo is wearing a suit in this game.
Yeah, he is.
Which is,
he's got some nice shoes on.
Right. Wasn't on my bingo card for that to happen. But yeah, I just love that they're continuing this platformer that I really liked. I gave it an 8 when I reviewed it. And I just love how kinetic the grappling was, how you could just chain together all these movements and keep running through a level, even though the levels are 10, 15 minutes in the original game, you're soaring through them so quickly that you don't really feel the time pass. And again, it's doing like the bonus stages from Donkey Kong Country. It's got all these influences of games I love. And then as like a cheat to mention more games, just because I just participated in Steam Next Fest October 2023 edition, I just want to quickly mention other games I got to play that I liked. I got to play another Crab's Treasure. It's as good as everybody says.
I am also looking. I meant to put that on the list. I'm super looking forward to that,
I know,
especially after talking to you and Egg about it.
Yeah, I know you're really looking forward to that. I know you're safe keeping that on your hype list. I know you'll like that one
Hackers.
a lot. Ete, which is a game about you're visiting Montreal for a summer and you paint the world. It's a very watercolor looking game. You create art. You have tons of flexible art tools, and you can like display your art. You get to enjoy the art you make in this game, which is something I always enjoy. If
Talking to you, art school.
Calling out art school again. I'm so sorry, art school. But it's a lot like Chicory, I guess, in that way, where you can display your art. You can also sell your art. You do tasks and quests for people in the town. Everybody has like really nice animation too. Go Mecha Ball is another one I played. This one you would probably dig. It's an arcade game where it's very much like pinball.
Okay.
And it's kind of a roguelike, and you're just zooming around in ball form, boosting into enemies.
I think I saw a trailer for it.
Okay.
Just randomly.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for it in Next Fest, and that's how I decided to play it. And you're just picking up all these weapons and destroying robots. It's just, pure unadulterated fun. And then another game that's really strange, kind of spooky, bizarre. While We Wait Here. This is a game set in a diner, and you hear that the end of the world is coming, and you interact with all of the customers. You work at the diner. You interact with the customers. You talk to them. You make different dialogue choices with them. And depending on what you say, that changes the outcome of the story. But you also like hallucinate. You run into like unexpected people who come into the diner. You're making food for the customers, so it's kind of like a cooking simulator, but it's also a weird psychological story. And I only got to play a little bit of this because the demo is so short, but I'm interested to see how that game plays out now after playing it. So those are all my mentions.
Wow. Okay. That sounds heavy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the one that I'm most curious to like play again and play more of, I guess. So again, Disco's picks were Cavern of Dreams, Lucid, The Heirloom, and Rune Fencer Ilia. My official mentions were Europa, Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, Fruit Bus, Windswept, Valley Peaks, and Grapple Dog's Cosmic Canines. So we will do this again on episode 2 of season 6, which is crazy to think about.
We'll see you in June.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even like imagine that far ahead. Before we move on, if you're listening to Underplayed right now, thank you, and we love you. Please consider giving us a follow and a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. It takes just a few seconds and goes a long way. It's time for our secret games.
Secret games. Secret games. I know you're playing without me. Secret games. Well, I'm here to tell you, baby. Secret games. I've been playing too. Secret games. Ooh.
In Secret Games, we each pick a game aside from the featured game we chose for this episode to just play on our own time in secret. I don't know what DiscoCola has been playing these past few weeks. He doesn't know what I've been playing. And this is just our opportunity to reveal what that game is and review it. It is the side quest game to the main quest game. Like if Titan Souls is our main quest, this is the side quest we chose for the past few weeks. So we will start with you, DiscoCola. Let the mystery be no more. Reveal to me your secret game for episode 46 of Underplayed.
All right. My secret game is an action-adventure game from Thunder Lotus Games.
Oh, I know them.
And it is called Jøtun.
Jøtun.
Yes.
Oh, you've told me about Jøtun.
I've told you about Jøtun.
You've told me about
before.
Jøtun. This is, I know it's on PS4, and I know you've had it in your collection for a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I just sent you that trailer. You can check that out while I go on. Jøtun. In Jøtun, you play as the Viking Thora, who dies an untimely death, or, quote, an inglorious death, is what the trailer says. The game takes place in this like Norse mythological limbo sort of place called, and I wrote it down here, Ginnungagap.
Okay.
That's my best pronunciation. And Thora is given the chance to impress the gods and earn her place in Valhalla. So as you take control, apart from Jotunheim, which I believe is the mandatory starting zone, you have your choice of 5 of the 9 realms in Norse mythology that you might be familiar with. Many of those 5 realms are also divided up into 2 parts that you must complete before fighting that realm's Jotun, and Jotuns are elemental giants.
I already see the connection to Titan Souls
Exactly.
that you chose
yes.
here. Yeah.
I believe the synergy is strong this time. Thora, with her giant 2-handed axe, will explore the realms in order to collect the runes, which will unlock the boss doors. And along the way, Thora can also find Jotun's apples, which will increase your health, or god shrines that will give you access to special skills. These god shrines will include familiar gods like Thor, who will increase your strength of your attacks, Loki, who will create a decoy of illusion, and Frigg, which will provide a significant heal to your health if you need it. There are more, but those are just some of the examples of gods that will help you along the way. As you might expect, the realms the Jotun inhabit are similar in environment to the element each Jotun represents. So, for example, there's Isa, which is the winter Jotun, and as such, the realm Niflheim is an icy realm with fierce icy winds and frozen lakes.
You're conjuring all these memories from God of War and God of War Ragnarok for me. A lot of this terminology is familiar to me.
Oh, good.
Because you play in tons of the realms in those games, and like the Jotun's apple, like you collect.
Is that even a thing?
You collect that for health upgrades in those games. Yeah.
Wow. So, my pronunciation is not letting me down so far. I appreciate that.
I think you're mostly correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I forget sometimes that the most recent God of Wars were Norse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Explore the levels, unlock the boss door, beat the boss. As you go, you learn more about Thora's untimely death, and then next realm after that. And I'd say that's one of the first things that come to mind when I think about what it is I like about Jotun. This is a video game. It's straightforward. Even without any sort of dialogue or anything, you understand your goal at pretty much all times. Even in the first realm, in order to get to that realm's singular rune, you have to locate 3 other triggers first. But this game makes it very clear. You find one of those triggers near the entrance to the rune, and it shows, one of 3 triggers turning on. So now it's very clear that you need to go find 2 more. And because you found one right near the doorway to the rune at this like bottleneck of the level, you know exactly what the triggers look like. So goals are clear. You know what you need to do. It's just a matter of exploring and finding it. And there's multiple examples of this throughout the entire game. So even though I do get lost, I never actually lose sight of what I'm actually looking for. Everything in this game is hand-drawn. The characters, the bosses, the worlds, the effects like fire and snow. And it all almost always looks good. So I really love that. But it does mean that pretty much every inch of this world looks unique. And that's something special. The only things I think that are directly repeated are sort of interactable objects in the world. Like you might have to knock down a tree to create a bridge, and a level will have several of those. All of those items that are interactable will look identical. But I think that's kind of important so that you always know how to identify something that you need to
creates a
progress.
precedent, and then you look out for that thing again.
Yeah. I really enjoy each of the boss designs and how creative their designs are and how their attack patterns incorporate their element as well as the theme of the realm that they're in. So you'll have the cave Jotun, Her theme is blacksmithing, but also rocks and jumping and just hard surfaces. And it's really cool that the realm is incorporated into the boss design and attack, as well as the element that she represents. Max LL is on this soundtrack as well. We heard him on Spiritfarer.
Nice.
And I think he did a great job in this game. There's not a bad track in the bunch. I think they all play well on radio. I don't know that I personally would play all of them on radio, but it's all very good stuff. In addition to music, there's a fair amount of voiceovers in this game. Every voice line is performed by authentic Icelandic performers, and they all sound awesome. They really help with a few pronunciations if you're listening closely, too. But it just feels so epic to defeat a Jøtun and then have the narrator say in his deep Icelandic voice the phrase for, "You have impressed the gods," as you teleport away. It's nice to hear these authentically voice-acted terms. There are also a great variety of tasks to perform in order to find your way to the runes. One zone may have you activate like 4 totems in order to open up a bridge. Another will have you recreating constellations in the sky while dodging thunderstorms. This helps to give like a great deal of identity to each realm, but also those realms that are divided up in 2. It adds a distinguishability to those 2 different zones of the same realm. So a lot of great identity in each different level. There's a lot to like about Jøtun, more than I thought I would after I tested it about 2 years ago. However, I do still have like 3 or 4 pretty big complaints that are as true now as I felt during that test play a couple years back. The first and biggest complaint is that I just do not like controlling Thora. Now, don't get me wrong, the controls themselves are smooth, and they react the way that they're supposed to. And you're able to do everything that you actually need to be able to do to beat the game, but your movement speed is just so slow. It's so slow. Even your attacks are super slow. And I get it, you're wielding this huge 2-handed axe, but man, just like think of Spiritfarer's mining action.
Yes.
But like takes even a bit longer than that just to
Gotcha.
like swing your axe and your powerful attack. You have access to a dodge roll, but unlike other games where you do a roll dodge or a dash or something, this doesn't help you move any faster. It's literally a dodge. It's faster to just do your slow walk.
Can I interrupt with a question?
Yeah.
Is the world also like so large that the speed of your movement feels a little mismatched?
Certain zones, yeah, can be a little bit daunting just because of how big they are compared to your walking speed. But yeah, you do technically have all the tools you need to beat each boss, and when your maximum speed is a brisk walk, this sort of makes the bosses themselves feel less imposing. Like, yes, some of them move fast, but not too fast that it's impossible to beat them. So, if I think about it logistically, it kind of sometimes feels like if I was playing as Stella from Spiritfarer, I might be able to beat these bosses faster, do better than...
Yeah, she's very nimble.
...than a Viking with a huge axe,
For sure.
Speed would make a lot of difference. That being said, one of my other complaints is actually that a couple of bosses are too hard, mostly because they move fast or jump really far. So if you're not close enough to where that boss lands, when they land, you'll be waiting an extra cycle or 2 before you have another chance to even charge your super slow axe attack. And then my last really big complaint is that collision can be hard to discern, especially in the boss fights. Because it's a bit of an isometric perspective, you can be behind the boss and it can seem like you're close enough to land a hit on its stupid giant feet. But then you're too far away for your axe to actually connect when you finally get the chance to charge your axe.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And this even happens at times when I scoot just a little bit closer than I think I need to. There's one boss in particular that I felt like I was just wasting so much time because it had both that jumping factor and the perspective factor at play.
Yeah.
So that boss fight was just a huge drag and it took forever. And I wasted so much time charging axe attacks that didn't connect.
Yeah, that can happen in isometric games. Like just the depth perception can get weird, especially if like the communication of your radius of your attack is a little vague, or just there isn't a lot of visual feedback to how that happens. So it's some trial and error. Yeah.
Other smaller complaints, I think the trophy list is asking for a lot. Not quite as much as Titan Souls seems to be asking for, but it is asking for a lot of the same kinds of things, and it's just a little too tough. I did play this on my alternate profile though, and so I'm not like super worried about it. I did think about switching over to my main profile because most of them are definitely doable but challenging, but there are 2 or 3 that are just like not feasible in my opinion, and I wouldn't care to do them. And my last small complaint, you get powers from the gods that I mentioned, and for a brief time in the game, it seemed like there were enough gods to get an even quantity of each power in the game. But this isn't the case. Like quantities across different powers do not end up being equal, and that just upset. It just makes me itchy. It makes me upset. Like why should I have 2 of Loki's things but 3 of Thor's things? You know, that's just an example. I don't remember which ones are 2s or 3s.
That would totally bother me too.
Yeah, makes me upset. Not a deal breaker though. After I discovered limited run games, Jøtun was the first game that was in that back catalog of missed pre-order windows that I wanted to track down. I did find a lot to love about Jøtun, and it was ultimately still a great experience. I do still hate controlling my character, and I think if she could move just 40% faster, I would have loved this game a lot. But as it stands, Jøtun sits for me at about an 8.0.
Nice positive experience overall for DiscoCola and Jøtun. I'm familiar with a lot of this sort of subject matter from other games I've played. So if you, like, unless you've been living under a rock and haven't interacted with a lot of culturally relevant media the past few years, you should know what you're kind of getting into with all the Norse stuff. Because you did play a game that's very similar this time to our featured game, which, slight spoiler alert, Titan Souls is a short game. I'm curious, like, just how long is Jøtun Valhalla Edition? How much time did you spend in this game?
I probably spent about 4 to 5 hours. It's roughly the same length. A lot of what takes you longer is if you choose to do all the collectibles, which I did, and you just move so damn slow that it just takes longer.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, the trailer shows off tons of the different areas and different bosses. Like I feel like it does a good job at just showcasing the game. So if you're curious about Jøtun, listener, I encourage you to look at the trailer. And otherwise, I don't really have any questions or clarification needed for this. But I do want to mention that Thunder Lotus Games has an upcoming game called 33 Immortals. And it seems like they're sort of going, you know, from Spiritfarer back to this whole world of like action adventure and this sort of similar mythology. This is a 33-player co-op action game. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it, but it got shown at a showcase like sometime in mid-2023. So they're still making games, and they're sort of flip-flopping back and forth between these cozier adventures and then the more action adventures. And I just think that range is super impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
For them. What can you play Jøtun on?
Yeah, Jøtun was available on the Wii U and is currently available on Windows, OS X, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PS4, which is where I played it.
It's time for my secret game. My secret game is also a game with a colon in it. It is not an action-adventure game. My secret game is Alba, a wildlife adventure.
Okay, I haven't heard of this, but I like the sound of it.
Okay.
Let's check it out.
So Alba, a wildlife adventure is an exploration and adventure game. It's kind of in the title, isn't it? That was first released in 2020, and it was developed by Us2 Games. It was published by Us2 Games and PID Publishing. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "Even the smallest person can make a difference. Join Alba as she sets out to save her beautiful island and its wildlife, and possibly start a revolution," End quote.
Yes. Get it, Alba.
Get it, Alba. You play as a very small person in this game named Alba. Alba is a kid who is visiting her grandparents for vacation on the Spanish island of Pinar del Mar. And this is a third-person game where you're traversing on foot throughout the island, you're documenting fauna, and you're looking for ways to clean up and preserve the environment. And Alba arrives on this island for her vacation, meets with her grandparents, and soon after the game begins, there's this dolphin that washes up on the beach. The dolphin is trapped in this net, and Alba and her friend Inez discover the dolphin, and they're like, we got to save the dolphin. So you run around to all the adults on the island, and you get their help, and then you and all the adults save the dolphin. And because you do this, Alba and Inez feel energized by this prospect of like saving animals. They decide to create a wildlife rescue league. And the very next day, there's this big meeting on the island. The mayor is assembling everybody to make a big announcement. And the big announcement is that the mayor wants to do this new big building project on top of the island's nature preserve, which is sort of deteriorated a bit. There's not a lot of, right. There's not a lot of like upkeep for the nature preserve. And so to sort of salvage the land, the mayor wants to build a giant luxury hotel.
Gross. Get out.
Which is much to the dismay of Alba and Inez. So Alba resolves to protest this by collecting signatures from the adults on the island. She needs 50 signatures, and she can basically cancel this whole thing from happening. And so Alba and you, the player, do this by doing favors for people. And you have a journal with tasks, and a lot of the tasks are about restoring people's interest in nature and wildlife. A lot of them are about cleaning up the island and doing favors for people that just make their way of living nicer. And so in this game, you're cleaning up trash. You repair bridges. You repair birdhouses and picnic tables. You help free animals that are stuck in waste. There are some people who just want your help spotting rare animals. They're already interested in the wildlife, and they just want your assistance in documenting the animals. And this is where you, as Alba, you're scanning the wildlife with an app on your phone. And so she gets this phone, and you can pull it out and scan different species to identify them. And this becomes a collection task in the game where there are 62 different species. Most of them are birds, but there's a lot of like smaller kind of land animals as well. There's like squirrels and like a gecko and, all kinds of stuff like that.
Gotta scan them all.
Exactly. And so it kind of feels like a creature collector almost, even though you're not holding on to the animals. You're just, you have this checklist of all these animals, and can you find them all? And there's this near mythical Iberian lynx that Alba is looking for. She and her grandpa had a run-in with it when she was even smaller, when she was like a toddler. And so you're looking for that too, and that's kind of part of the story as well. So the goals of the game are to spend your vacation on this island, improving it, getting the signatures from the islanders by doing tasks for them, stopping the hotel from being built, and just to protect nature and gain appreciation of nature. And what I love about Alba Wildlife Adventure is that this is one of the most adorable, wholesome games I've ever played.
Yes. Perfect.
We've had these games before. There's Grapple Dog. You got Teacup. You got Carto. You've got Chicory A Colorful Tale. You have Smushy Come Home. And now you have Alba Wildlife Adventure. This game sort of joins that pantheon of cozy, wholesome, nice, kind-hearted games. And that's what makes this game easy to recommend to other people. And everyone has such a pleasant face. Just all the characters in this world are rendered in such an adorable way. I love little details in this game, like the way Alba's tiny hands clutch the phone when you're scanning animals. And when Alba runs around, she skips and she puts her arms out to the side, like a little kid would. She doesn't just run. She doesn't just have one running animation. She's doing all these fun little characteristics too. And you talk to adults a lot in this game. Alba is doing their tasks. They sometimes ask her yes or no questions, and you need to actually answer back by either shaking or nodding your head. And the way you do this is the camera will switch to showing Alba from the adult's perspective. So she has like tons of headroom and she's just like this short little girl. And you need to move the stick up and down or left or right to nod or shake your head. And you can just like sit there and keep nodding her head, and she'll keep nodding her head until you stop. And then when you stop moving the stick, the adult, understands the answer. And then
wow.
the dialogue continues. And it's so cute to like see her just nod her head like over and over and over. And she smiles when she nods. And then when she starts shaking her head, she starts to frown. And it's such a simple, fun, clever way to present that. This game is just feel good. Everything you do is so noble. I love how the adults aren't condescending toward the children. There are children in this game helping adults, and the adults are grateful. They want and need the help. They don't always even realize that they need help. And here's this little girl, Alba, who's like fixing things. And that just feels so good that she is so welcomed. And while the mayor is arguably the antagonist of the game, the mayor is who's introducing the conflict, he is not full of malice. He's not like this Machiavellian,
right,
like devious villain. He just misunderstands. Like he doesn't understand why the luxury hotel is a bad idea.
He's out of touch.
He is.
Weird.
He is.
Odd.
Right.
Imagine that.
Exactly. And you get the feeling that there's that misunderstanding among all the adults, which leads to trash being on the beach that didn't go in the bin. And that's why you see a bird that got stuck in one of those plastic like 6-pack carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why a farmer is using pesticide on his orange trees that's making the squirrels sick. And it's why the nature preserve needs more upkeep. And so you're fixing all these problems. And by solving these problems, you're helping others to understand, especially the adults. And doing tasks in this game is kind of a way to generate empathy for our planet in the player. It makes me want to go out of my way to recycle more after playing this game. It makes me want to just take a walk outside after playing Alba, a wildlife adventure. The construction of the island is great. Everything feels authentically Spanish. There's the architecture of the homes. There's the kind of grass you walk through. There are crops on a farm that feel very particular. There's like cacti. There's a historic castle overlooking terraces on the island. And so
even the squirrel in the trailer doesn't look like squirrels from around here.
No, it doesn't look like any squirrels I've ever seen in person. And so this game is portraying this sense of place with a great variety of areas on this island. Then there's the task completion, and that felt really satisfying to me as someone who enjoys collection and to-do lists. That is definitely going on in this game, and it's just done really well. I love how cleanly the journal is presented. You're getting tasks, they get crossed off. It just feels really
That's
good
your
to get all that
favorite
stuff.
thing.
It's one of my favorite things in games. What didn't work so well for me in Alba, a wildlife adventure, kind of like what you said in Jøtun about the movement. Alba doesn't really move slowly, but the island is pretty big, and there are moments when you need to backtrack from like one end of the island to the other.
Oh, darn it. Yeah.
And while her animations are really fun and charming, while she's like running and skipping and throwing her arms out in the air, sometimes just making your way back to a spot can just be a few minutes of just watching Alba run. And there's not really any way to speed that up. Some of the wildlife are hard to track down. A lot of them are birds because they spawn in just like one very specific area, and you don't always know like that you need to look way high up in the sky or that you need to look at one specific tree where they'll be. So there are a couple animals that I couldn't find. I wanted to find them all, and I did look up a few. Moving the phone to scan the animals can require some repositioning too, because Alba stays glued in the spot where she is when you pull out the phone. You can't pan the phone and move your body.
Yeah, you can't do a little sidestep.
You can't do a sidestep. You can move the phone around in your field of view, but the field of view is kind of limited. So if you don't nail it, you're kind of pulling the phone out, putting it away, taking the phone back out after you've repositioned. And then there's not really a big incentive for scanning all the animals in the game either. You get this like badge, you get a congratulations, but nothing really impacts the story. I get the sense that you don't have to actually scan a ton of animals in this game to finish it, to get the 50 signatures and to stop the hotel from being built. It's just kind of for your own enjoyment. And so it feels a little detached from the rest of the game. And I wish it was a little more integral for all the task completion and just the story. And then I played this game on PS5. Sometimes when I interacted with objects, there was momentary freezing where the game would just freeze for a good 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh, no.
And I was afraid the game would crash. It never crashed, but it just kind of broke the flow here and there on the PS5 version for me. But overall, Alba Wildlife Adventure was a delight. It is a cozy sit, perfect for all ages. Its gameplay is quite casual, and it comes with a valuable message. For me, this is a perfectly pleasant 8 out of 10.
Nice.
And it is playable on PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4,
Holla.
PlayStation 5, which is where I played it, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and Apple Arcade.
Hell yes. I don't have very many questions. I have next to no questions. How dare you keep giving me like jealous games so early in the season again. So looking at this trailer over and over and listening to what you have to say about it, I'm noticing that there's day and night in this game. Does day and night play a role, and how does the day and night cycle work if there is one?
So you're on this vacation for about a week, and the game will let you know what day of the week you're on, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think the last day is on Saturday. And how it works is to progress the story every single day, you need to do a couple of main quests. And they even show up on your map and in your journal with like, I think a gold star to indicate that these are like the golden path quests.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are side quests that you can do to just get more signatures earlier. Once you do all the main quests on a day, your grandparents will tell you, hey, it's time for dinner, come back home and eat dinner with us. And that's how you end the day and start the next day. But until then, you can go around and scan as many animals as you want. So you can do as much as you want in your journal. During that moment, it'll be like sunset time. It'll be like golden hour, but it will never truly get like dark. On the very final day, I think you experience nighttime. But the day-night cycle is just to indicate if it looks like it's noon and the sun is high in the sky, you're not done with all the main quests of the day. Once it starts to get sundown time, that's when you can technically move on to the next day by going back home to the grandparents.
So there's no true like real-time clock in the game?
No, not really.
Okay.
No, it's not like 40 minutes of gameplay pass and the sun will set because that's how long the afternoon lasts in the game or anything like that. I think it's determined by the tasks you're doing.
Perfect.
And the time of day also doesn't impact which animals spawn where or anything. It's not like bug snacks, you know what I mean? Where like some animals only spawn in the rain and at night, you know, it's not that level of depth there.
Cool. Perfect. I think this sounds like just an absolute delight. I'm going to put it right under maybe right above Carto in my priorities.
Nice.
As far as games.
Oh, like play it before Carto?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as
cool.
like games I really want to play.
I think it's just so relaxing and easy to pick up no matter what mood you're in. It's one of those games. So
I'm really ready for my kids to start skipping too. This is just so cute.
Well, speaking of kids, this is also just a great game for children. You know, it's a great game to introduce to people who haven't played games before. It's just, again, it is one of those games I can recommend to a wider variety of people. Those are our secret games, Jøtun, Valhalla Edition, and Alba, a wildlife adventure. Let's move on to our review of Titan Souls. It is our featured game. Titan Souls is a 2015 action-adventure game developed by Acid Nerve, published by Devolver, one of the holy indie publishers. We love Devolver here. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "Between our world and the world beyond lie the Titan Souls, the spiritual source of all living things. Scattered amongst the ruins and guarded by the idle titans charged with their care, a solitary hero armed with a single arrow is assembling shards of the Titan Soul in a quest for truth and power." End quote. I think that does a really good job of summing up a story that is pretty light and vague. I don't know that we need to add a ton more context to the story, but yeah, you're just playing a nameless adventurer in this game. You're a very tiny guy in this game.
Yeah, you're like maybe 32 pixels total. So
yeah. And not that this really matters, but it's worth observing, I think. But you have eyes that are just like really far apart.
Oh yeah,
in this game. You
fish man. That's right.
You look like a fish man in this game. It's kind of humorous. It looks like you're looking in like two very distinct different directions. But you are fighting these bosses called Titans. You're roaming across this big land. You're going to different environments, a lot like Jøtun. You have all these different, you have like a normal plains area. You have a forest area. There's like a lava underground area. There's an ice, snowy area. And you are armed with an arrow that can be shot at the bosses. This is your only weapon. And you only have one arrow. You shoot this magical arrow. You can retrieve it by holding a button and the arrow will return to you. That's how you sort of reload in this game.
Yeah, it's a magic arrow.
Yeah, and to shoot or retrieve the arrow, you have to stand in place. And so that's where some of the risk comes into play with the combat, where you want to shoot an arrow across the room that you're fighting the boss in. Well, you have to stand there and hold the button down for a good second to charge it. The longer you hold that button, the farther the arrow will go. But you have to stay in place, and in that time, the boss might hit you. So you have to judge when you should stop to either shoot or retrieve that arrow. And you can run and dodge as well. And in the normal, like just base mode of the game, there are 19 total boss fights, 19 total Titans you fight. I think there's a 20th if you play the hard mode, but I didn't play the hard mode. And we can talk about like the different modes. And you brought up trophies a moment ago. I might want to talk about trophies with this game in a bit too. But each of the Titans has a different strategy, right? So you might fight a golem with large fists that try to crush you. You might fight a yeti with a big butt that you need to shoot. You know, like that's a thing in this game. There's a knight who like kind of fights like you. They shoot a big arrow at you, but it's way larger than your arrow, and you have to avoid it. And everything in this game takes just one hit to defeat, and you die if you get hit once. So the boss fights are potentially very short, but you're very fragile, right? So you're just trying to find the weak spot. You just have to hit it with that arrow once, and you're done. But doing that is easier said than done sometimes. Sometimes. When you defeat Titans, they become these like big lifeless masses, and you absorb their souls. And the goal is to just defeat Titans to progress and to seek the power of the gods. There's not a ton of like story. There's some like optional moments where you can get talked to by some beings, I'll say, and there's like text on screen and you get a little hint behind like what happened before you were in this world. But this game is Acid Nerve's predecessor to Death's Door, which we mentioned already. And as we discussed in that review way back on episode 14, Death's Door and Titan Souls have a shared universe. The secret ending of Death's Door shows the ending of Titan Souls. There's like a big door at the end of Titan Souls. You see that. You also get talked to by a being called the Truth. The Truth is something you can fight in Titan Souls. I didn't get to do it because I didn't defeat all the bosses. So yeah, you can kind of like draw comparisons between the games. There's some lore from Titan Souls that leads into Death's Door, and a lot of it is sort of over my head because it's about knowledge and truth and power and these gods, and this being did this to create all this life, and then something happened because of that. It's a lot of like kind of big concept, sort of like godlike and truth-seeking ideas. But is there anything else about the setting, the story, the world, anything like that you wanted to mention or thought was...
Not here up at the top, no.
So otherwise, the game is like really straightforward. You can delve into the game. You can like really try to seek meaning from it. I think this game is really straightforward for most people who play it. It is a game where you're just doing these really short boss encounters, trying to survive and just not get hit with one hit. And so DiscoCola, I'm curious, as someone who loved Death's Door from Acid Nerve, we actually both gave it a 9.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite reviews we've done.
Yeah.
And we talked at that time about, how someday we might play Titan Souls. Here we are, after now finishing Titan Souls in your one sitting on Twitch and having a couple people watch you do it. How was your time with Titan Souls? What do you think of this game?
Yeah. So remember how we called Death's Door a Goldilocks game?
Yes.
Yeah, not here. Not this game.
Not Goldilocks. Can you expound on the Goldilocks idea
with
Death's Door?
Death's Door was just the right amount of collection. There's not too much stuff, too little stuff. Just the right amount of exploration, just the right length, just the right amount of difficulty. And that is where this game decided to depart. This game is hard, my dude.
It is hard.
It's hard. And those are my overall thoughts. This game is really hard. Just really, really hard. But really, while I generally like reasonable amounts of challenge, there are still quite a few things that I like about Titan Souls. Like Jøtun, this game is actually pretty straightforward. Like you said, you're thrown into this world. You press each button once to learn what your limited arsenal can do. And then you press on, and it doesn't take much exploring before you understand the different waypoints for Titans. There are certain visual cues that will point you in the direction of Titans that you can fight. So like your checkpoints will have circles that get filled in, as you defeat Titans, and they are pointed in the direction of the Titans, whether they're defeated or undefeated.
Yeah,
so
you return back to the waypoints when you defeat one, and it will fill in, and you might not always know, like, is this the boss that correlates to this little symbol on the ground? And then you can confirm that, and then you know what direction you're supposed to go for the next one. Yeah.
And it's very general direction, but it does still like point you in that direction, and it's really cool. There is an absolutely incredible variety of boss designs that makes for a really fresh experience for each boss fight. And somehow this is like exemplified by the very straightforward controls. All you can do is roll dodge, move, shoot, and retrieve your singular arrow. That's it.
Yeah.
That's your entire
and
skill
run.
set.
Yeah.
But the game uses those things as the foundation for each boss fight and each boss room. Like one boss may essentially rely on recalling your arrow at the right time as opposed to shooting your arrow at the right time. Or one boss may have a room that is designed around simply moving to the right place at the right time. And others may be as straightforward as stay alive until you find your very brief opening to attack. And so I think it's really cool that not only the boss designs are so varied, but just the way you approach them is still varied, especially given your limited skill set. I also love that this world feels organic in a way. There are like some elevators and some sort of like portals, but a lot of the Titans are just in small little buildings or some sort of enclosure, or they're just part of the actual environment at times. And it made me feel like I actually did arrive in this odd world inhabited by Titans, as opposed to like, okay, now we're in this level, and then there's 2 or 3 Titans here, and now we're in this level. It felt a little bit more organic than that.
Yeah, a lot of the ways you get to them are like climbing cliff sides or just ascending or descending staircases. It feels like this world was sort of built a long time ago and then was abandoned. You don't really see anybody else in this world. So it feels like you're stumbling upon all these ruins of this lost civilization too.
Right.
I like that feeling.
Yeah. I also like that you don't even have to fight all the bosses. Like Titan Souls is a boss rush game essentially, but you get to pick and choose your choice of 8 or 9 or whatever it is to open the final door in the game. And you can still choose to fight more if you want, but there are bosses in this game that I haven't even seen Boss rooms I have found but couldn't figure out how to activate. This is just a nice relief as someone who found the game to be quite difficult, that I didn't actually have to take down everybody. I find the controls are generally responsive and feel good at most times. Your movement speed feels appropriate. Your dodge roll works exactly how and when you feel like it should. But I think my absolute favorite thing about Titan Souls is the Oko system, or one hit kill.
Yeah.
Oko.
Yeah.
You get killed in one hit, and I've played a lot of games where the player character takes one hit deaths, but I have never played a game where bosses were one hit kills. For me, this does a lot of things. It raises the stakes of the fight. You are both fighting tooth and nail to kill. Whether it's you or the boss, if you give your opponent a second at just the right time, that's the end of everything. And it reminds me of like my favorite fight scenes in film, and that's Blade Runner 2049.
Oh.
I've talked to you about this previously. Like, it's so hard to get that opening to kill something, but once you do, it can just be over suddenly and quietly and sort of like solemnly.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel that when I'm playing Titan Souls and defeating bosses.
There's a quality to that, the solemn nature, the sort of poignant nature to it, where the whole thing just freezes. The boss becomes this like empty mass that's just sitting in front of you, and you have to retrieve your arrow out of it.
Yeah.
That was carried on into death's door.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
you're right.
That idea, I think, is like a very clear commonality between these games that Acid Nerve really likes.
Yeah.
Like, just that feeling is something you don't find in other games with bosses.
Yeah, and I don't get that just the way the sound design and the visual design of the boss, like that screen flashes, everything stops, and you just slowly drain the life and the soul away from this Titan. It's so satisfying. And I've never like gotten such an incredible sense of accomplishment for actually defeating bosses. Like, sometimes I get a lucky shot and I just happen to defeat the boss. Sometimes you fight the boss for several minutes, both dodging each other's attacks over and over. And sometimes you come into the fight with a plan and you just execute it perfectly.
Yeah.
But all of those types of victories are all so satisfying. None of them feel cheap.
The one-hit kill idea that you're kind of celebrating here, it also adds sort of a mythology to what you're able to do, what the boss is able to do. Like, everything in this game is powerful. The arrow you have is incredibly powerful. You know, there's just a weight that's communicated there when it's just the one hit.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. Like, it feels like a more epic fight in a way, even though it is a more streamlined fight, because you're not decreasing a health bar and the boss isn't decreasing your health bar. Because it's so much more concentrated, it feels like the stakes are just, they're concentrated. You know, it's all happening like in a super short moment most of the time.
Yeah. Lastly, the last thing I really want to point out that I love is that I think the final boss gauntlet is pretty cool. You get to this zone and it's pretty much a zone that says visually like, hey, you're probably about to kill God. And the boss is pretty cool. It's definitely a really awesome final boss for sure. But even though I love a lot about Titan Souls, I do still have 3 like really big frustrations. And you can guess it, but the first one is that this game is just, it's so heckin' hard, my dude.
Yeah.
It gets really hard, especially when you start looking at the trophy list, and we can talk more about that later. But yeah, it's hard to even elaborate on that. Like, I got smashed, I got zapped, slapped, stabbed, shot, pushed, squished, pummeled, bruised, massaged, and tickled.
Basically, all the ways you can die in Return of the Obra Dinn, except tickling. That's not in that game.
I did make some of those up, but there are just tons of ways to die, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. Sometimes it can happen before you even can comprehend what just killed you.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
There are even times when you think you're in the clear, but something like hits your funny bone, dead. All of these bosses are just throwing so much more at you than you can even dream of dishing out yourself. Like, there's this mushroom boss. Nothing about what you're doing against this mushroom boss or that this boss is doing is super crazy, even in the greater world of like action adventure bosses. But you're having to like dodge spores. You have to deal with psychoactive visual effects. You have to
touch fuzzy, get dizzy.
Yeah, you have to dodge the actual jumping mushroom and line up your arrow at just the right time in just the right direction to hit this boss's like super small weak point that also rotates.
Sometimes I'm going to argue it's luck as far as whether the right lineup of like boss position to your position to what attack are they doing. Like some of it is RNG, I feel like.
I beat that one with luck, you know. I just got really lucky. The bosses can just be so quick and erratic, and unless you're up close, which by the way is super dangerous, your attack is going to take a good amount of time to charge up, and you know, there's just that risk reward that you already mentioned, but I feel like it all leans more toward risk. Like there's just so much risk.
There is.
Yeah, it's so hard. The other big complaint I have is that we don't get like a huge sense of progress. Like, yes, we're beating more and more bosses, and that is being signified on the doors and the checkpoints, and we're tracking progress in that way, but the player doesn't like gain access to any new skills or tools, and the game doesn't reward you with anything other than opening a door. And while I do appreciate the concept of beating each boss with the same set of tools in your toolkit, I don't think that getting to the end of the game is necessarily reward enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that kind of sounds like entitled to say, but now that I've beaten the game, the only thing that makes me want to go back and play it is the trophy list. And there are some really fun trophies in this list that are asking me to beat bosses in certain ways or under certain conditions. So that's kind of fun, but without that, like I got out of the game what I wanted to get out of the game.
Sure.
Like if I got access to maybe a spread shot arrow that shot 3 arrows maybe instead of just the one, or an arrow that charges a little faster, or an arrow that's a bit bigger, something that might make most boss fights, you know, a little easier, even if it's just like a reward for beating the game, then you can go back through, you know, with just like this fun little cheese weapon.
Yeah. You move faster, you shoot. It takes less time to shoot your arrow or something. Yeah.
And there's like you mentioned the night boss. Like I thought for sure when we were fighting that boss that he would end up dropping some sort of permanent upgrade to our arrow in our arsenal.
Right. He's very similar to us.
Yeah, I thought that was
and he's harder than a ton of the other bosses at that stage of the game.
I agree. It felt like very significant, and that something significant would happen as a result of his defeat. But no such luck. So I guess
you have to line up like 2 really good shots to defeat him, and it's not fun. Yeah. I watched you play that on stream, and it was before I had even started Titan Souls, and it made me think, oh gosh, am I going to have the equipment in my body to beat this game? And he's one of the bosses I took the most deaths on.
I same here. But so I guess I'm disappointed that we don't get anything, you know?
I would even just take a streamlined travel system to go to all the areas or something, you know, like
teleport to Titans that you've beaten or something.
Teleport to the checkpoints, the waypoints from waypoints, even if it's that limited. That'd be really convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my last big complaint is that I don't care for navigating the overworld. It's pretty like huge for what it is, and what it is essentially a boss rush. You know, I do appreciate some of the puzzles that I have to do to arrive at a boss room, specifically like fire arrow stuff was kind of fun.
And the forest has that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of space here that isn't doing anything. And it has like long, parallel, winding paths that only connect at certain points. And I just can't always figure out where I need to go. I can sometimes see where I need to go, but no amount of like hugging the wall or looking for a specific opening seems to help. Sometimes I just accidentally arrive somewhere new. And I'm like, this isn't where I was going, but I'm here now.
Yeah, that's how I found a few bosses accidentally. I was trying to find like boss A and I found bosses B and C. And I was like, I didn't even know these existed.
Yeah. But like you mentioned Twitch, our friend, a specific egg at No Small Games was watching. And she said, man, this seems like it would be so easy to get lost without a map. And a map would just do so much to improve the experience I had trying to find some of these Titans. I swear at one point I was like looking for one Titan room for more than 20 minutes and I never found it. I've still not found it. I know it's there somewhere because the respawn point indicates that direction with a living Titan, but I couldn't get there.
Yeah. I'm sorry to jump in so much, but
I love it.
you're reminding me of that final door to open. It tells you how many Titans you still need to defeat to open it. And I would remember like, oh yeah, that lava area, I have all 3 Titans there. But I remember there was one sub area where I only defeated one of the 2. Where was that? Which one was that? Was that the forest or was it the plains? Or, that's where I kind of was frustrated with the traversal, is just like remembering, okay, not only where do I need to go to reach a waypoint, but which waypoint do I need to make my way back to?
Mm-hmm.
So I wish there was a checklist. I wish there was that map or a fast travel to just make that rediscovery a little bit better.
Like, you move way faster than Thora, but it's just still not fast enough for traveling.
Right.
Yeah, Titan Souls is a game that is largely frustrating to play in the moment. However, the creative and varied boss designs keep me at the edge of my seat, excited to see what I'll find next. Am I fighting a dice cube or am I fighting a yeti?
With a big butt.
Yeah, the brutal challenge is offset by a mechanic that cements a life and death struggle, which manages to create some of the most satisfying victories I've experienced in video games. The one-hit combat experience is perfect for the one more try genre of game that makes this game hard to put down sometimes. But it's so hard, and I don't have a good reason to go back and get better except that I now have to earn all these trophies. Luckily, the controls feel pretty good overall, and so I can rate this just a little bit higher at an 8.5.
Wow, that's actually a lot higher than I thought. I thought 7 or 7.5 was going to be the score coming out of your mouth there. But
it's hard, but I really had a great time, and these boss designs are so heckin' rad.
And that's something
they're so different.
That's something you pointed out is something that is like DiscoCola catnip, is like, give me awesome bosses, give me awesome character designs. This game is replete with that.
I agree. And it's just, they're so like, not creepy, but it feels like this mythology. They're all drawn from this type of mythology that sort of like freaks me out, that I'm actually like terrified of. Like, there's no face. It's just like an object that has an opening,
Yeah.
Just kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's a lot of what I felt about Shadow of the Colossus, which is a common comparison to this game, where Shadow of the Colossus is a third-person open-world game where you're hunting down giant bosses and you're just this tiny little guy.
Yeah.
It's a silent goal because there's not really any talking in the game, but you have a goal, and that's that it's implied that defeating these Colossus creatures, these legendary mythical creatures, will help revive this woman who's asleep on a table. And I guess the thing that I don't like as much about Titan Souls compared to other games where you're doing like just boss after boss after boss is this game just doesn't really have a lot of there for me in its world.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little setup. It doesn't make me as invested, but I will talk about what I liked about this game first. So each Titan has their own quirk. Each one is different. It's very easy to figure out what you need to do, especially when you realize each one has like a weak point. So you look for that weak point, and then you examine their behavior and you ask like, which phase of their movement do I need to hit that weak point? Sometimes you can just go after the weak point anytime as long as you have an opening. Sometimes you have to wait for a couple of loops of animation or a certain attack. Sometimes you need to provoke the Titan to do a movement, to attack itself maybe, to reveal a weak point. And so I think all of those slightly different strategies make them fresh while still clearly communicating what you need to aim for. Something I really like about this game is the music. The music elicits this really epic feeling of fantasy. There's a lot of weight to the journey that's communicated through the music. There's a theme just called the Souls theme. I think that plays really well on the radio. I was listening to it in my car earlier today.
Nice.
Love that. The Titans theme is really cinematic and sweeping. I haven't gotten a chance to re-listen to the whole thing, but I think each boss or maybe boss area has a different theme. It's quite a long soundtrack, longer than I expected, like more tracks in there. And then the idea of the one-hit combat is interesting to me too. I haven't seen that in many games. I can't think of a one-hit boss game example other than Titan Souls at the moment. It feels really hard, but it also feels fair because both you and the boss are fragile. There's a freedom to choose which Titans to fight to progress too, like you mentioned. I love that. I love that I'm not pigeonholed into like trying to defeat all the bosses, or I have to defeat this one. Like I don't know if you played like the lava slime one. I did not want to beat that one. You know, I skipped that one. There were 2 bosses in this game I skipped. That was one of them. And then what I dislike, the story in the world just doesn't draw me in. You're just this guy who's fighting all these monsters. I know there's a deeper meaning. I know I can read into the lore and stuff, but I've said countless times on this show, I don't like doing work to uncover a deeper meaning or the plot. I just want the plot to be told to me, and I don't want it to be about this vague stuff about beings and powers and truth and knowledge. And it's like, just throwing those words into the game doesn't do a lot for me.
Yeah, you don't want to be spoon-fed, but you want something.
I do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I happened upon a side area in this game where I got interesting text on screen from, I think it was the truth, but you're climbing these ruins and the truth is calling you out and is saying, oh, I see the abomination in your quiver or something. I've seen that before, and you are less encumbered than other adventurers who came before you.
What?
So it's hinting that you are not the first one to do this in this land. You're not the first one to be on this pursuit to find all this knowledge and to defeat the Titans. And I think that's interesting, but it's in an optional area I stumbled across.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen that because it tracks with something that we see later in the game too.
And you can go online. You can like easily just watch that scene. Honestly, I think you'd be fine doing that. But I guess it is interesting. You just have to do work to uncover it. It's just not my thing to do that. And so I'm not finding a lot of motivation to want to fight these bosses when there's not that story. And when the world is just sort of big and empty. The open world is too big with not enough to see and do. I wish it was just a little more condensed. I wish those boss rooms were closer together. I don't mind walking around the world, but when you're so tiny and when you move relatively slowly and, you know, the world is so big, there are stretches of land where you just need to keep walking and walking with nothing to do along the way. I wish that stuff was just condensed. The central mechanic of firing an arrow can be hard to do because everything is so small as well. And it actually made it really hard to target things for me. I thought, you know, with the control stick, aiming the right stick or whatever to aim the arrow, there's no like aiming reticle, which is fine. But because everything is so small, I might fire in a general direction rather than trying to use any skill that I have to aim. I'm just aiming in a direction and hoping that I happen to hit
everything
something.
is moving so fast too, and that just condenses
yes.
the difficulty.
And so that's where this game becomes a little bit more trial and error for me. I know what to do. I know I need to wait for phase 1 and phase 2 to happen, and then there will be a weak point that's exposed, and then I can fire an arrow. But when I get to that point, there's maybe a 35% chance I'll pull it off. And I just have to hope that this next attempt is that time where I just happen to hit that 35% chance. Oh no, I didn't hit it. He hits me. Now it's time to restart it. It's fine. I know what to do. But then there's the respawning at the waypoint. You respawn and sometimes you have to walk. Maybe it's no more than 10 seconds, but just that repetition of dying dozens of times to a boss, respawning on the waypoint, walking that 10 seconds to get to the room. It's just uninteresting. I wish I could just like start the boss over again. There's not that quick hit, like retry. It's not throwing you back into the game in a way that's encouraging. It feels like you're almost being punished with some lost time by like dying. And you die a lot in this game. It's hard. So then also, you know, there are barely any options in this game. There's no way to pause the game.
Oh, is that right?
I tried pausing during a boss because, you know, my dog wanted something and I tried hitting the pause button and it just brought up like a very simple menu that didn't pause the gameplay. And so a little bit of like super hot is going on in this game.
Oh, weird.
Where you want to pause. Were you able to pause?
I mean, I guess I just assumed that was pause, but I didn't try to do it during a boss fight.
Yeah. So I ended up dying a couple times because I forgot pause wasn't a thing. And then the cadence of progress in Titan Souls feels a little uneven. I really like the first area where there's the one golem, and it has like all the different parts, and each of those parts are like a boss fight, and they're
Mhm.
relatively easy. You do all those, and it opens up the first gate of the game, and then it really opens up after that. But then once you defeat the 10 or 12 bosses or whatever it is to open the final gate, then it's just like 2 more boss fights, and then you're done. And it feels like you do this big adventure, and then it just sort of like really becomes hurried at the end. So the tempo of that progress feels kind of truncated at the end, I guess. So maybe we could have split up the progress in the middle a little bit. We could have added another gate. I don't know.
Mhm.
But overall, Titan Souls for me is a largely rewardless adventure with no meaningful world building, characterization, or plot. I like its soundtrack. It has a unique one-hit combat system that streamlines the stakes. Its map is a little too big with not enough to do to make any of the traversal interesting. Titan Souls, I think, set the groundwork for a better adventure in Acid Nerve's follow-up, Death's Door. For me, just because I didn't get a lot of enjoyment out of this game, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10.
5. Ooh, that's way lower than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I had mentioned my frustration with the overworld and how much I disliked it, but you like really drove that home for me and how much I had a lot of frustration with that. I do, thinking about it, I do kind of want to bring mine down to an 8.0.
8.0, okay. And watching you on stream, I saw you get lost. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw that frustration sort of come out. And even watching you find where to go and eventually like find your way, I still got lost
Yeah.
in this game. A lot of it was forgetting, where should I go again? Because I only did one of the boss fights in that area. Where was that? And so,
And we've both talked about being directionally challenged just in general.
yes, we both are.
But I don't feel like what is happening in Titan Souls is 100% our fault being directionally challenged.
Yeah. Once you learn it all, it does make sense, just like anything. But I don't know that I ever completely got down like how to get to places. A lot of it just is nonsensical. I wish it was more like Hyperlight Drifter.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was more like Hyperlight Drifter, where you have the central area where there's clearly like 4 cardinal directions you can go. The east is very clearly defined, west, north, south. That kind of happens here, but you have to go through some areas to get to other areas.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit too much sub-levelification going on.
I feel like once I got down to like the lava world, which by the way, I didn't defeat any of the bosses in that zone.
You didn't?
I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
even. I went there and I was like, okay, I don't like fire, and I went back
Okay.
upstairs. But I did start to feel like I was getting lost in the same way that I got lost in the first Metroid Prime, which I still have yet to beat. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I kept getting lost. And
Yeah.
I'm just not good at those kinds of games.
Yeah. We're both directionally challenged. I think it is an us problem and sort of a game problem as well. I'm curious about your most memorable Titans. Who did you come away just like either having a really tough time with, or you felt super satisfied defeating? Like who do you remember from this game?
I remember the little cube guy just because that's such a cool design, cool idea, and it's just
One of the opening ones.
One of the very early ones. I just think it's such a cool design, cool creative idea, and it's just like creepy but not disturbing, or maybe it's disturbing and not creepy.
Sure.
I don't know, but I loved that boss design. Of course, I remember the knight because that one was just so difficult to defeat and took me a long time. The like sea serpent that uses electricity.
Yeah.
Really cool, really epic room. Very different because it uses like non-pixel elements. It seems like, but took me a long time to figure out, and it's throwing so many unique things at you compared to other fights that I wasn't totally sure what to do. It has one part of its body that looks like a weak point, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've already hit this thing like 3 times and it's not working. Maybe I have to do something with this lightning. So I spent a lot of time just not sure what I was doing in that fight. So that one stands out. The Yeti stands out not just because of his butt, but because of how he moves and how he attacks, and also reminding me of the Yeti from Death's Door, because they use a lot of rolling moves and throw a lot of ice at you.
I totally forgot about that.
And then the mushroom. I mentioned the mushroom when I was sharing my thoughts, but I remember the mushroom because that one was very difficult, and I hate mushrooms.
You're reminding me that, yeah, not all of them are super telegraphed as far as like what you need to do. Sometimes it is that trial and error. I guess like most of them for me are pretty clear about what you're supposed to do. And then it's just about examining the patterns of the attacks to figure out what's your open window to attack them. But yeah, I had issues with like one of the lava area ones, Molcaen. This is the one that's like just a big ball of lava. And it spits out tons of fire, and it also spits out like an explosive ball, and you have to lure it next to the ball to explode it. And then it turns into a crystal that you shoot, I guess.
That sounds daunting.
But I could never get Molcaen to get within radius of its exploding ball before the ball got exploded. And so I just could not figure out how to do that. That's one of the ones I skipped. That's the one in the lava area where I think you have to go behind the lava waterfall. It's like a hidden door. Yeah, not my favorite. I also point out Knight Elhanan, which is the really tough one with all the pillars and shooting the arrow at you. I probably took like, I don't know, 40 deaths, 50 deaths.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
And then the Yeti is one of the ones I defeated the fastest because it throws like a bunch of snowballs at you. You dodge those. Then he rolls into you. And as soon as he's done with that roll, he shows his butt to you and you can shoot it. And it can happen in like less than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so that one was really satisfying to just like go in. Once you have the right aim, it still took me like 20 tries because my aim was off every time. But that one's really satisfying because it's just like over like that.
That's the one I was thinking of when I was like, you can come in with a plan and execute it perfectly. That's the one.
Yeah. And then goal set and the soul at the end of the game.
Okay. Yeah. Those are very memorable. Yeah.
Yes.
You're fighting God. It's awesome.
You are. And you have a super short window with the soul where I actually looked up what to do with this because I didn't have the patience to do all the trial and error. I had to wait for like the second attack, and then he comes out of the soul, and you have to shoot the guy, and you have just
It's so small, dude.
It's so small, and that one was just again like luck. With did I aim this right? Oh, I did this time. I beat the game.
Yep.
Okay. And goal set is the one with the fists that crash down. But there are more than one smashy hands golems in this game. This is the one where you have to have the hands hit the switches to open the door to the mouth.
Fun idea.
Again, a little like vague about what to do once those switches are hit, because then they start attacking you again. And you have just one little window to do it. So it's tough. It's tough. So you did not defeat all bosses.
No,
so
not even close.
You didn't fight the truth. So the truth is like a 3-phase boss fight. It's unlike other bosses in this game.
Daunting. Cool.
It is.
All right.
So look forward to that. And then just stat-wise, at the end of the game, you beat the game and it tells you your playtime, how many you defeated, and how many times you died. My playtime was about 3 hours. I defeated 17 of the 19 Titans, and I died 219 times in this game.
Oh, good Lord.
Which, I knew I died a lot, but 219 is a lot more than I thought. I died a lot more than I thought.
Let me see if I can pull mine up real quick. Oh, here it is. Okay. I killed 13 people.
Okay.
13 Titans. I received 166 deaths, and my playtime clock is at 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Okay. I defeated more Titans than you, not because I was trying to defeat more, but because I didn't know there was like a minimum and that I didn't have to defeat them all.
Mm-hmm.
I totally could have finished this game like a lot sooner.
Yeah, no, I think I defeated more than I had to, because I went to that final door and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, it's open.
It's already there. Yeah.
It's opened. Okay. I didn't explore that or look at that door and keep track of anything in my mind. I was on my way to try to find something else because I was lost.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you just accidentally discover things in this game because you're looking for something else, and you never find that first thing, but you find the other thing
And the other thing is the end of the game.
the end of the game, or another boss that you didn't even know existed. And it's like that phenomenon where you lose something in your house, and in order to find this thing, because I've been looking for an hour and I can't find it, I know I have to lose something else and then look for that second thing, and then I will find the first thing.
Oh man, I just like get mad at the house and just, throw clothes around or something until I find it.
And then it's in the freezer, and you're like, why is it in the freezer? Let's look at that trophy list, DiscoCola. What is
disgusting?
So you are a trophy completionist. You started playing this on your main profile.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
You didn't play it on your Cancer Trophies profile, which is like your throwaway junk profile. So now this trophy list is attached to your main profile forever. You can't get rid of it.
It is inside me.
It is inside you forever. What do you have to do in this game to get 100% and the platinum?
Okay, here are ones that I am worried about. Basically all of the ones at the bottom of the list. Beat the game in hard mode. The normal game was hard enough. Hard mode's probably not going to be a picnic.
Nope. And I think hard mode introduces a new boss, according to the wiki. I think there's a 20th boss.
Disgusting. Beat the game in under 20 minutes.
No way.
I am more worried about that than anything else. Like, yes, all these bosses are one-hit kill bosses. Basically, I have to become an expert at Titan Souls to beat the game in 20 minutes.
Well, then I guess 20 minutes seems very daunting to me too. But what would worry me is doing the iron mode, because I think that's the one hit, or you can't die.
You can't die at all. Yeah, probably.
Forget that, dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
There's a trophy in Jøtun where you have to like beat Valhalla mode without dying, which is I'm ultimately glad I'm not doing.
Oh my god.
Because I did only die like 3 or 4 times in Jøtun, but it's enough to be like no thanks.
Well, what about also Hard Biscuit?
Yeah, beat the game without rolling.
Yeah.
No.
Which is amazing.
Yeah,
that's an amazing,
hilarious. Yeah. I mean, is there an easy mode? I don't know, but like even still, it seems like something I need. At least you can die, but like rolling feels like a need.
Rolling feels necessary, like especially just with like goal set at the end to avoid those fists.
Oh yeah, the fists.
How do you avoid
How
the
do you
fists?
do it?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
I look forward to you telling me.
No, you don't.
I do.
You're going to be waiting.
Well, and then there's like combination ones too, where you have to beat the game in iron mode with hard mode active.
What does that even mean?
Well, that means you can't die once, but you also are playing on the hard mode.
So they're different.
They're different, and you can activate them independently and simultaneously.
Iron mode's not like a difficulty beyond.
No, it's like Hyperlight Drifter has something like this, right?
I don't think so, dude.
There's other games we've played, but there's something here where you're activating 2 hard settings at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do each one independently, hard mode and iron mode, or you could combine them and do iron mode and hard mode at the same time. I don't envy that at all.
Yeah, I have great regret with putting this on my main profile. I think I was just thinking like, oh, this is such a legendary game.
I'm a pro gamer.
This is a legendary game. I should just do it. Just man up and do it, Cola. Man Cola here. But that was a mistake.
No.
Ugh.
It's that dangerous machismo that you always vilify. And now it's taking over your gaming profile.
Yep. I done myself in.
What I love, though, looking back up closer to the top of the list, are some of the ones that I accidentally got, where you're doing certain quirks with some of the boss fights. Some of the Titans have certain requirements to get these trophies, like, will you kill the knight after destroying all the pillars? That's an interesting thing that you wouldn't necessarily think to do on the first try, but it seems a little more possible than some of the iron mode and hard mode things. Or like kill the rolling titan in under 5 seconds, or finish the yeti in under 10 seconds. That's one of the ones that I did, just because I knew the exact window to hit his butt, and I did that within 10 seconds. And I wasn't trying. It's just the first window that I had.
Yeah, these look fun. I'm looking forward to getting some of these.
Yeah, and like you remember in Death's Door, there wasn't a trophy for defeating the Urn Witch. There wasn't a trophy for defeating the frog guy.
Oh, yeah.
There was a trophy for doing a certain Spark Mandrill effect ending for those bosses.
Yes.
And
that's so right.
That's sort of like what's going on here, where don't give me a trophy for defeating the knight. Give me a trophy for letting the knight destroy all those pillars first. And that shows that I can endure this fight a little bit longer than maybe I'd want to. So some of them might be stressful, but I like that there's that fun of needing to look at the lists and think about how would I succumb to the effect of the spores with the mushroom for 30 seconds total before defeating it. Like I'd have to run around the room and make sure that I don't get hit when he does the certain ground attack and do that maybe 6 times to last 30 seconds. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting list. I just think it's too hard for me. I would never want to chase the platinum.
So instead of like trying to avoid revealing secret games on my Twitch channel to you, I'll just play Titan Souls until I'm dead.
There you go. I mean, I think you have a lot here. There's like enough material here just trophy wise compared to something like, Hades with just the sheer amount of content you need to experience in that game to get the platinum. You're not experiencing as much content in this game. You're just playing really hard stuff over and over until you defeat it.
Oh, what have I done?
I don't know, but good luck to you. If you stream it, I will be there cheering you on.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that'll do for our review of Titan Souls, unless you have anything else.
No. Ooh, do we want to reveal the special thing about our next episode?
We could, yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we mentioned in the season 4 finale that we will be having guests this season, and one of them is going to be on season 5, episode 3, where we will feature Donut County, and our special guest will be from the Jack Rodenberg experience and composer of Underplayed's music, Jack Rodenberg.
Jack Rodenberg. He is a very talented musician, makes a lot of music content about plants too.
Yeah, those are so great. I've learned so much already.
I know. Funky Plant Time. He does lots of fun compositions, including the compositions you hear on this show. And we're happy that he agreed to be our first guest. What the heck? That's fun. So looking forward to talking about a quirky game with a fun music maker next time. That's our review of Titan Souls. You can play it on PC, Mac, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and Android. DiscoCola rated it an 8. I rated it a 5. That's the end of this episode of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on common podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Our music was composed by our next guest, Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Underplayed is on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at UnderplayedPod. You can find me in those places at BoPo. That's BO_PO. I'm also on the GG app where you can see my game lists like my top 100 indie games of all time.
And you can find me on all of those places, but mostly Twitter and Twitch as DiscoCola. And look for Underplayed Podcast on Twitch and check us out playing co-op games for the show and maybe just other co-op games that aren't necessarily for the show.
Next time, we will have 2 more secret games to review. Our featured game, again, will be Donut County. We will be reviewing it alongside Jack Rodenberg. It is a puzzle adventure developed by Ben Esposito. Until then, everyone, keep on playing.